King of Knives is, not necessarily a midlife crisis film. I'd say it's more of a middle-aged coming of age story. Welcome to the Film Strap Podcast. I am Chris Gore. I hope your 2020 has been going well, in spite of it being 2020. But here we are, and I believe that we are currently living in a golden age for independent film because while the big tentpole Hollywood blockbusters have been put on hold until next year, I think that the good that's come from that is it has allowed a whole bunch of independent films to rise to the surface and to get your attention. You don't feel that pressure to go out and see the big Hollywood blockbuster because you know what? There are so many great independent films being released on video on demand and on Amazon Prime, and I'm personally in heaven with it. So let's talk about this film, King of Knives. I'm fortunate to have the writer on the show. Lindsay Joy is with us, and the acting team, Roxi Pope and Jean Pope. Thank you so much. You're so this father and daughter, am I right? Am I assuming correct?
Yeah.
That is right. She's my youngest.
Okay, good. I got that right. Tell me where all of this, the idea for this came from, Lindsay, and then how Roxi and Jean got involved.
Sure. Well, really, I have to give so much credit to Jean. So really, there's a story by credit there for very good reason. Jean and I knew each other through the indie theater world in New York. I knew Jean as an actor, and he knew me as a writer, and we got together to work on a project. And Jean, what was the first kernel? I feel like it was that moment when you realize you're closer to death than you are to the rest of your life, which is like, it's such a dark seed, but a beautiful seed.
Yeah, I know. I remember that we started talking about it, and we just started talking about midlife crises, and I was speaking about it, how interesting it would be to really get that out in the open, but with your particular way of kicking the chair out. And not to just do it as like, oh, midlife crisis. No, but to have, so it's something that's like, it's like the rest of life. It's like stuff happens, and then you go, and then the stuff that you don't think is really funny, it's like all of a sudden it becomes funny. Yeah. And that was the thing that I saw in your writing. And then we started having meeting after meeting after meeting and closing out restaurant after restaurant. And well, you can give them the timeline, but it was like it was a lengthy process to get this done.
Yeah. I mean, it really, I think Soup to Nuts took around a year and a half, but there was a lot of sort of like polishing, refining, bringing together our actor friends in New York to sort of read through and see what was working, what wasn't working. Because at the end of the day, I was, of course I was everything was sort of centered around Jean's character, but I was really interested in almost the crisis of the family over the sort of midlife crisis of just one character. And what was so lovely and what Jean really encouraged as we kind of started this was I really love to use humor as like a portal to something deeper and darker, because I firmly believe if you can get an audience laughing, or you can get them to see something ridiculous, then it almost entitles you to talk about difficult things, to talk about the things we don't want to talk about. So, I really appreciate that Jean liked that in my writing to begin with.
Well, it's I think I described it maybe not so well in the intro, that it's sort of like, I don't see it as a midlife crisis. I see it as a coming of middle age because of the way that things were. Jean, you pointed it out. It's not like, oh my gosh, the world is falling apart. It's like, no, it's this acceptance. It's this, looking at things like, I really love the relationship you have with your wife in the film, and how you're trying to make that work, and how messy and complex that is, but not in a way that's a disaster. It's in a way of, look at this family we created. We're here. We've survived many things. I really was touched. So I think the coming of middle age might be a better, sort of more hopeful way. And I feel like that's why this stands out as being so different. And there's so many scenes like where you do drugs, you dance, you get the tarot card reading, you flirt with women maybe far too young for you, but that's okay. It's played in a way that's like it's you're going through something. I don't know. I really fell in love with it. So I guess that's just a comment more than a question. But on that, I should talk, Roxi, you being involved and with your father in this, and what that was like to have this really warm family dynamic.
Yeah, I can't take any part or like any credit for the creation of this, besides being Jean's daughter and auditioning. I actually was probably the last person to come on board. I actually auditioned more than any other actor for the role. So literally was the last person kind of to get on board, cast member. But yeah, it was really interesting to audition for my dad. Also playing a role that's very close to who I was at a younger age. That experience was definitely surreal. It was comforting to see my dad in the audition room and to, shoot the shit with him, but it wasn't, it was still nerve-wracking. Still a little nervous. You want to impress your dad. You're like, he's doing this film and you're like, I don't want to make you look bad or anything.
Well, the part actually, we talked a lot about, Lindsay and I talked a lot about Roxi when we were doing this character of Caitlin, because Roxi was, and probably still is, a very strong woman who doesn't take much crap from anybody. And you know what I'm saying? And yet at the same time, she's got this wonderful heart and she's very loyal to her friends and she'll help you out at the drop of a hat. But it's like, she has very little patience for this silly, stupid stuff that comes along in life. And she's the one that kind of like keeps the family on its toes, all the time. And so she's a bit of a disruptor in the movie on purpose. Yeah.
She was I feel like an amalgamation, like we had talked about your relationship together, Roxi, and then, Jean and I talked about the relationship that I have with my dad, which is, again, like a younger, like my younger administration for sure. But there are a lot of similarities there about the rapport that they have, about the not having to have a filter. There are so few people in your life where you can be 100% yourself. And that's what I see, between Caitlin and Frank. And I think the thing I love about what you brought to that role so much is just this sense of like, there's vulnerability to her, even though she's tough. She's got like all of these, tough barriers up. Like there's such a raw vulnerability to her where it's like, you guys are just as messed up as me. I'm just outwardly showing it. That's all. Yeah. And I really I loved that about your performance.
Thank you.
Well, I really like the dynamic too, from the standpoint of dealing with adult children, right? You have children who are adults, and I feel like in a way, Jean, they were more adult than your character. But what you were going through was a lot of that coming of age, that coming of age journey that you see mostly in teen films, but here you are as a fully formed adult. Am I wrong? Was there a little flirtation with the tarot card reader, his character? I kind of felt like there was a little flirtation in there. Was that me reading into it, or was that intentional?
It was, I was on drugs at the time. And as you could see, I was having a little bit of a flashback at that moment too. But what I consciously decided when we went into this was that I wanted to play me, how I have felt. And this was way before all this good stuff that's happening now. But this was like, I just felt like my whole life, I've been open to anything and everybody, and that a person is capable of moving me, even if they're from some other place, you know, like a card reader or what have you, and it still can touch me. And so that's what Lindsay gave me to work with in the script. And so it was very obvious reading the script that it's like I'm very captivated by Sebastian, and that's just it. So I was just reacting to my fascination and the fact that he reminded me of somebody that I'm not going to mention for the sake of the script, and that's what happened, and that's why there was a closeness there. And also, when we were casting, I was looking for someone who would, in his general nature and his general essence, would be Sebastian, this person Sebastian, who could touch my heart.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt that we cast Justin Sams, who is one of the most beautiful, I mean, really, like, physically beautiful human, but like also just in like the good egg, what a beautiful human kind of way. It doesn't hurt to be looking at Justin Sams.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because your character is so, I feel like your reactions to everything that happens in the film are so against what you would expect, sort of flipping expectations. And I found that to be really refreshing. I think that that's why this journey is so much fun to go on, because you're at this place where it's almost like you're experiencing your fuck it list, right? Like, fuck it, I'm just gonna do drugs. Fuck it, I'm just gonna talk to this girl and flirt and see where fuck it, I'll get in the car. You know what I mean? Like, just like whatever journey you're on, like, fuck it. So maybe that's another name for this movie, King of Knives. So I'm curious. I know we're living in this time where everything's coming out on video on demand and PVOD and all this stuff, whatever, which I think is great. But I think this movie would play, and I don't know if you had the opportunity to see it with an audience, because I do believe that this movie is like a crowd pleaser, feel good in the best sense, not in a pandering sense, like a journey that you experience and feel better for it. So did you have the opportunity to see it with audiences? And
yes. Yeah, we, as a matter of fact, it's almost spooky what we did. I decided that we needed to have a test audience. I've done this before, but I decided I wanted a test audience on the East Coast and the West Coast, and that would be. And then let's see what we get with that, because I was convinced that you get to see this in a theater, in a dark theater especially, and people are going to react to this in an interesting way. And it turned out that afterwards, and we did the screening on February 29th of this year. Which was, so it was, we just escaped with our skins, and I'm very grateful, but I keep going, oh my God, that was close. That was really close, too close to comfort. But the great thing then was that we shot interviews with everybody as they left, everything. This is the whole point of it, was what did they like? What did you think of the actors? What did you think of the music? What did you think of the story? And then what did you like? What did you not like? 96% of the audience really enthusiastically liked the movie, and that's like that struck me. And the demographics, right? All the different styles of people, the older, the younger. Like, we asked them, it's like, who will like this movie better, boomers or millennials? And it was literally split down the middle, with some people saying both. I think both. And I think, and then boomers would definitely say, oh, I definitely can identify with this, and I really like this. And a couple of them said, but I think that millennials would like this too. And then, of course, the people that were millennials were saying the same thing. And that was gratifying. So, but seeing it in a theater and seeing people who were reacting to everything you hope they would react for, again, it's a very nervous thing to sit there. And what it is, I call it watching the backs, everybody's back. And what happens is, if you're watching everybody's back, you can tell so much about how engaged they are in the movie. Because if they're not engaged, you see them start to like this, right? And or the worst case is they look down and they're secretly opening their phone, And there was none of that. None of that. Everybody was like upright and engaged. And so that's what told me, I think we've got something nice here, you know?
Well, Gene, I'm glad you brought that up. You know, the fact that it's split. I mean, yes, your character is the protagonist, the lead, but I felt like the other characters, Roxi, was so well represented, and also from their point of view of having to deal with certain things, in sometimes involving your character. But like, I thought that there was such a good balance. And additionally, I felt like, while I don't want to get into spoilers like the ending of the movie, but I do want to say that it felt like I wanted more, in the sense that I feel like this could be kind of a kickoff to a TV show. Am I wrong? Like I don't know if you've.
I'm pointing at you, Lindsay.
From your mouth. I'd love that.
Because your relationship with your wife, I feel like, was so critical and had such a great dynamism. Like I felt like there was more, and you could have gone off and told stories of Roxi, your character, just focus on that. So I don't know, something watching this just struck me as like, okay, like, so what happens next? Like, am I the only one that feels this way? Am I, Lindsay, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, look, you know, it's always the task at hand. And this was sort of like the snippet that I wanted to focus on. But the truth is, like, you know, it's a snippet of like a lot of people going through big change and not necessarily getting what they want. So there is this feeling of like, well, how else do these lives continue, improve, not improve, change, all of the above? We've just seen like the crazy snapshot of it. And I love these characters. I'm biased, of course, because I wrote them. But I think that there's something really identifiable with all of them. I think, you know, basically from any background, I think there's at least one character that you're really going to identify with, and want to follow and care about. So, you know, yeah, amen. Let's do it. Let's make a TV series.
Yeah.
But I'll also tell you, so Chris, you can have this as an exclusive, okay? This is the first exclusive.
Okay.
And so we are absolutely have been and are working on King of Knives 2, because it's just too rich a story to have what happens, and then it's like, now what? And I have to leave it at that. I can't really go into details, but let's just say there's some really interesting stuff that continues on.
For sure.
Yeah, I do feel like there's, and I don't mean this in a bad way, that there were some unresolved conflicts that I think were good. There were other things brewing, and I think they're characters that I kind of wanted to see come back. So it seems like, whether it's a sequel or, you know, an ongoing series, I would love to see that, especially because my impression of this, just from the poster when I saw King of Knives, and then Gene saw your face, I'm like, oh my God, is this like a gangster movie? Is this some violent King of Knives? And then when it comes out what that really means in the film, it's very different than what my impression was. So I hope no one else is gets the wrong impression with the marketing. This is a heartfelt family drama that you need to experience. Having gone through the experience of making the film together, and Lindsay, sounds like you were involved. Sometimes writers are kind of sidelined when a movie is in it, and it's good to hear that you were really a big part of it. What are your thoughts now that you've been through the journey of making the film?
It was, I mean, really, it was so exciting to see, you know, to see a piece of writing come to fruition, and for so many of the visuals, not only to like meet expectations, but then go above and beyond. And of course, everybody sort of talks about like that casting process, but to watch really amazing actors come in and bring like such depth was just unbelievably satisfying. You know, yeah, I hope, my hope and wish for every storyteller is that they get to go through a process where they see a thing come to fruition like this. It was really thrilling. Yeah, I mean, Jean, you can speak to it a little bit too, because I feel like it's kind of like our baby a little bit, and you were really in the thick of it during production.
Yeah, it's like I can't. The cast was exceptional, and that's something. In another life, I was a director too, and so casting has always been important to me. And we had a great casting director with Liz Lewis casting, and Rachel Reese was head of casting, and I was there for every single day of initial casting, and was just watching this parade. And in fact, one or more of the people that we cast, they came in for one part, and then I turned to Rachel and I said, "He should read for Patrick." And that's how we found some people that way. But for me, just looking at the cast, I'm so proud of this cast and what they do, because they're so convincing and they're so real, and they added so much to their parts. Like, just any example, Patrick, right? Sadie's beau, and he's in there, and it was just written that he's washing the dishes in the kitchen, and everything that he did and he and I did, I just walked into that and I'm going, oh my God, look what he's doing. And there it is. And everybody did that to an enormous extent. And it just added, you hope that the film venue adds another dimension to the script, another layer. And I think it's very important, as opposed to if it's just a stage production, let's say. Film allows you the chance to get really close and see more. And the characters and the actors gave everything on this. It was great.
Yeah. Speaking of one of the actors, one thing that I really enjoyed was how, like, during filming, there was always some downtime right between takes. And you'd find time to talk about your process, or where you got your education, how you got into acting, and everyone's stories varied so drastically. And I think that's what also brought such a great, like, richness to their performances as well, because everyone was so different in their technique, that it also was so enlightening to see how theirs worked for them. And then, like, we would like trade little secrets with each other too. It was really awesome.
Yeah, the puzzle pieces came together in a beautiful way. Like, I loved all of the scenes that you had with Kara Young, your girlfriend. Like,
yeah,
you never know. Like, you never really know what the chemistry is going to be like, and I just loved the two of you together.
He particularly was really good at coming on the set. And I think our first day on set, it was a romantic scene, and I had never met her before. I mean, we had some rehearsals, but she was so good at just being so present and comfortable to work with. It was just like we could jump into it immediately. I mean, I really have to give her a lot of credit for that. She's the easiest person to work with.
Yeah.
Mel, I also should add that, working with Mel Harris was a pleasure. She really, really, really liked the script, and she was like there at 9 o'clock on, getting the first slot to try out. And that was her enthusiasm for the film was very welcome, and it was great. But working with her, it's like, I mean, I think it's safe to say that's like I knew her back then and really enjoyed seeing her, maybe even had a little crush on her, not back then. And so all of a sudden, here I am.
Still here. Still your daughter. Still here.
and here I am working with her. And that was just, let's just say that once I got on the set with her, I had to sort of throw that all away and just work. And we had so much fun in that, especially in the living room scenes at the end, where we were just working together. We, while they were lighting, we were just plotting it out, saying, okay, we're going to do from here to here, here to here, get it all done. And you need a breath mint, whatever, just little stuff. But it was working with Mel was a dream, as you would expect, very easy to work with and just so talented. It was wonderful.
Well, Jean, I'm so glad you complimented the cast earlier, because you're a big part of that cast. And I feel like just like the puzzle pieces, just as you said, fit together so well. I want to thank you all for being on the Film Threat podcast. This was such a pleasure, and thank you. I also want to thank our sponsor, Storyblocks. Go to storyblocks.com/filmthreat. King of Knives is out now. It's available on your pay VOD on Amazon Prime, iTunes, all of that. Thank you so much for joining us on the Film Threat podcast. This was great.
Thanks for having us.
Our pleasure, Chris.
Bye.
Bye-bye.